I am deeply honored to be asked to speak here today. Virginia and I met at my very first ever AAUW meeting, a branch meeting here in Tacoma. By myself, with the total commitment and support of my own mother, I had just relocated from upstate New York to Tacoma, and I knew no one. By chance, at that fall AAUW luncheon, Virginia and I sat across from each other. She immediately took an interest in me, and that was the beginning of one of my deepest friendships in my entire life. Much like how I was raised by my own mother, Virginia valued time with people. Time to tell stories, listen, ask questions, laugh, explore ideas, and time to be. Our friendship grew richer each year, especially during these last 10 years of our lives. We spent countless hours together, sharing rich conversations and exploring various aspects of life. We were two different generations, but we were drawn to each other's life experiences in deep and meaningful ways. We treasured in-person visits, but always stayed connected by phone and in our writings. After Joe died, Virginia and I spent much more time together, often over a meal she would fix, and occasionally over a meal I would prepare to take to her condo. We would go to a movie at the Grand or out for lunch, but mostly we enjoyed relaxing in her condo and exploring the general adventures and happenings in our lives, from books to politics to relationships, to paring down one's possessions, to simplifying life, covering anything that brought depth and meaning to both of us. We listened to each other with trust and love, without judgment, as we explored whatever it might have been that was on our minds on any given day. I have two stories I would like to share with you. Several years ago, Virginia shared with me a writing project which she decided to take on after Joe had retired. I would say this project exemplifies the Virginia many of us knew. She had an idea of something she wanted to do, and I think without telling anyone her thoughts, she moved towards executing her plan. Virginia decided she wanted to write her story of her life with Joe and all the children. Due to the age ranges, the younger ones didn't really know the stories because they weren't yet born. Virginia decided she wanted everyone to have the same family historical information from her point of view. So the first summer after Joe retired from the Air Force, she made sure he went golfing every day, and while he was gone, she began to write the family experiences, their travels, their interests, and I would guess some unique experiences from her perspective. She typed it out. Eventually, she had written what she wanted and actually had 2 bound volumes published with a copy for each child and one for herself and Joe. When she was sharing this with me in her very matter-of-fact way, Virginia had such a glow about her of contentment. Her perspective, her story of her life with Joe and their children. Even now, it kind of makes me smile as I think of her taking that on. The other story I want to share with you is one that involves my own mother, who died in June almost 3 years ago. My mother was dealing with dementia, and eventually I relocated her from upstate New York to a small ranch in Twin Falls, Idaho, near where I spent a great deal of my time in Sun Valley. Like Virginia, my mother was a lifelong learner. Even with dementia, my mother wanted to learn and do things. On what turned out to be my last visit with my mother at the ranch, I decided to spend the night and hang out with Mom. She kept saying to me, yes, but just what am I going to do with the rest of my life? She's 88. Where I had her, she could take on projects, and her caregiver would help her. So I suggested a few projects and told Mom we would put together whatever she wanted when I returned from a trip in a few weeks. Unbeknown to me, Jordana, her caregiver, was a quilter, and Mom decided she would do a quilt. She worked hard to match fabric patterns and spent days placing and pinning squares. In spite of fairly advanced dementia, Mom took on the quilt project with great success. Jordana would say, should we tell Sandy yet? Mom would say, no, not yet. How about Betsy, my sister in Salt Lake? No, not yet. And on her last night of putting the pieces together, Mom died of a heart attack. Jordana actually called me and I was on the phone with Mom when she died. After Mother's death, Jordana gave me the quilt top, which I immediately shared with Virginia, who immediately came up with an even better ending to Mom's story, and that was to have the quilting group that Virginia had quilted with over the many years finish the quilt by putting on the backing. This was a fabulous idea, one I never would have thought of. Virginia oversaw the project on my behalf, and I have that quilt. Whenever I think that life is a little too tough, I look at that quilt and I think of my mother's courage and Virginia's gift to me, that I immediately had it quilted to be enjoyed and not stored in some box. Virginia seemed to take action when time really mattered, one of her many wonderful attributes. Like my own mother, they both had an ability to make the best of any situation and move on to enjoy the life that stayed rich for each of them. I would guess there are many in this room whose life was made richer because of Virginia's sincerity and compassion. She was loving, thoughtful, non-judgmental, a problem solver, listener, reliable, true to herself and to those around her, a treasure of a person. Well, I flew from Sun Valley, Idaho to come here, and on my flight over, I started reading a book by Anna Quindlen called Lots of Candles, Plenty of Cake. And honestly, it was like reading about Virginia. And I almost couldn't put it down to center myself to finish this. I would have shared this passage with Virginia, but instead I will share parts of it with you, as I think it captures something more of Virginia, a part that is difficult to express in words. So now this is taking just a couple parts out of that book and kind of putting them here. Anna Quindlen is talking about the changing roles of women. We're unlearning so many lessons about how we should live, be, work, feel. The notion of what it means to be a woman, a mother, even a human being has changed so much during our lifetimes. Who says? By what authority? Why this way and not that one? Well, these phrases sound a lot like Virginia. So Anna Quindlen goes on to say that one of the greatest glories of growing older is the willingness to ask why, and getting no good answer, decide to follow one's own inclinations and desires. Asking why is the way to wisdom. I hope these words resonate with you and your memories of Virginia the way they do for me. Virginia's family was always most dear to her. Her husband, all of her children, spouses, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, everyone. She knew all of you were there for each other and deeply loved and supported each other. And this gave Virginia great joy and peace beyond words. I have here a poem that I didn't write, but that Virginia shared with me. She went to a memorial program for an AAW member in 1997, Lillian Larson. Because of my lifestyle, I'm like mostly not here. And Virginia and I always didn't let the distances be a deterrent. Virginia gave me this poem and she shared it with me and she really loved it. And I've always kept it. So I want to leave this with a thought. This thought with you. Miss me, but let me go. When I come to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the love that we once shared. Miss me, but let me go. For this is a journey that we all must take, and each must go alone. It's all a part of the Master's plan, a step on the road to home. When you are lonely and sick of heart, go to the friends we know, and bury your sorrows in doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go.